Bears beats Battlestar Galactica.
You really adopted the dark. I was born in it.
Sounds like somebody's got a case of the Mondays.
Bazinga!
2 in the box!
Ready to go!
We be fast and
They be slow!
Cool.
Sure. That is frustrating as piss.
Wanted to make sure everybody was awake.
There are nicer ways to do that.
I have my list right here. Michael Scott
this is gonna be
doing
fun.
somebody old.
Michael Scott doing Johnny Carson.
Johnny Carson, yeah.
I was just trying to remember the name of the character Johnny Carson did.
Carmack, something
That's
like
it.
that.
Yeah.
So it's Mike. It's so technically what I was doing was Steve
Oh, God.
Carell doing Michael Scott doing Johnny Carson doing Carmack.
Wow, the talent.
I'm the
You should have
man.
that shit on your IMDb profile.
Revolutionary fourth wall breaking right there.
Oh, boy.
Revolution. All right. Hold on. Let me get the computer on so I can get the timer going. Not going, but ready?
Get the timer on. No one's
Oh,
gonna
the 5 minutes
like
thing?
you are.
Yes, the 5 minutes per pick. I don't see a lot of crossover on this one. I don't see a lot of.
I see
How do
one
you
major
say-
crossover.
Man, I have so many picks. I haven't narrowed it down yet.
I'm
here
still
to-
I don't know what my list is going to be.
I'm still working with 8.
8. I wish.
I'm here.
I just
I'm here to
gotta-
learn today.
I gotta get one off the list. I got 5. I gotta get one off.
You didn't
But I
post it
can-
on your apparatuses, did you?
Yes,
Because we didn't know what we were doing until like an hour ago.
I've got 15.
And I didn't know how to post. We're doing human killers. Anybody? Human killers.
Oh Jesus!
We mean no harm.
And then everybody will be like, "This guy, my mom was killed by that guy makes my list." Oh Jesus! Oh, that's awesome.
Coronavirus. It is a human killer.
Ayo.
All right.
Too real.
We're recording, and welcome to the Mt.Geekmore podcast, your favorite podcast where you come to listen to 4 people debate, argue, and talk about their top 4 Mount Rushmore, if you will, of their favorite pop culture subject. Today's pop culture subject, as you can tell by looking at your listening device, is the Mount Rushmore of best cinematic natural killers. And by that, we mean they're not supernatural. So there you go. I am Nary Science. With me, as usual, is David.
Howdy.
And we got Daniel.
What up, y'all?
Recording from a different angle today. So if you guys are on the YouTube channel, you guys will see just a slightly different corner of his kitchen. And we also have Missy.
Hello.
All right. So we will be talking about, we first started off trying to come up with a theme for a Halloween episode because Halloween, by the time this comes out, is right now. But we realized that throughout the 4 years that we've been on the air, that we've done a lot of Halloween themed topics, such as favorite Halloween franchises, favorite horror movie franchises, favorite deaths in horror movies.
That was a fun episode.
It was a fun episode. So favorite horror monsters. So we decided to go the other route because in that episode it was all supernatural beings, such as a xenomorph and Freddy and Jason and so on and so on. So now we're doing killers in movies that are not supernaturals, that are just bad people, humans, evil humans. So with that said,
there's some good guys in there, right?
It's a pick-me-up episode.
They're just misunderstood.
I got one good guy on my honorable mentions.
Or girl, we don't know. Stop being sexist, Daniel. Stop being sexist, man.
Oh my god.
All right. So we're gonna go down the list. David, how did you make your selection?
All right, so I basically went through my my iTunes collection, and I was looking at the movies that I owned, and I was like, "Ooh, that one's got a good killer." And then I kept scrolling. Ah, that one's got a good killer. And then I ended up with 15 killers, and that was already whittling down, like just me being kind of judicious and saying I can't, that's it, no more, I'm done. And so I don't know what my list is gonna be. So I'm
I
winging
have
it.
a question.
I did
Of
the
the
same
fifth,
thing you did, David. I did the same thing you did, David, but I ended up with a lot of Humphrey Bogart. So I was like, ooh, maybe this is
Dave, of the 15 on your list, how many of them does your son know about firsthand?
One, two, three, four. Oh my God, he knows about four of them.
All right.
Oh boy.
I'm a terrible father.
No.
All right. Go ahead and move along now. Missy, how did you come up with your selection?
So this is not my wheelhouse at all. I'm a complete pansy when it comes to scary movies, horror movies. So I use the Google machine, and my
It
list.
doesn't necessarily have to be horror, though. It just has to be. I mean, it tends
That
to
is
be that a lot of
correct.
natural killers are in horror movies, but it doesn't have to be horror movies.
Well, that changes things. So, but anyway,
She's going
Missy's
last.
like, I need 1 minute. Hold on, give me a second.
yeah. Pick me last every time. I don't like horror movies only because I'm like a complete pansy, especially to the supernatural paranormal stuff. I'm glad I'm on this mountain in the sense that like it's kind of morbid, but humans are the scariest villains we're ever gonna deal with anyway. So let's talk about it. That's it.
Wrote a song about it. Like to hear it. Here it goes.
I agree.
Stupid.
Only one person got it, but that's fine. That's all I needed.
I got it.
Where's that
In
from,
living
Missy?
color. In living color.
In living color.
Oh, of course. Now that he gave you the answer. Debona, how did you make your selection?
There were a couple people that I had to debate about whether or not they counted as a human killer, right? So one of the things I did was I eliminated. There was one major one who like started as a human killer, but by the end of the franchise was supernatural. So I eliminated that one.
Yeah.
But then I just I thought about people who genuinely, 3 of my 4 picks are people that watching the movie, I was genuinely afraid of that person and the idea that that they could be real. And even my 4th pick, my number 4, is pretty scary, just in a very different way. But I just tried to go with ones where not just the movie. The movie itself was scary, but it had to be more than just the whole movie. I needed that one person to just absolutely terrify me.
Okay. I made my selection by looking up. I googled. I think what the phrase that I googled were killers and thrillers or something like that, and movie thrillers, like cinematic thrillers. Because I'm not the biggest horror guy, and all the horror movies that I've seen, the episodes that Geekmore has, which by the way you can find every episode of Geekmore at geekbro.net. I know iTunes recently I had somebody reach out to me, and they were like, "I'm listening from the beginning," and they were listening from like Geek Newsy 1, which was like 52 episodes in, and I'm like, "Oh no, there's a whole back catalog." But it's they cap you, so the only geekbro.net is what I'm trying to say. We have all the episodes up there. So throughout the years that we've done horror movie themes, that's it. I'm capped off. I don't know any more horror movies. So I went to thrillers because I found that thrillers tend to deal with more humans and less supernatural than quote unquote horror movies. So thrillers is what I went through, and then I went through my list. I went through the list and I got 5 or 6, and then I said, that's it. This is what I'm going with. So that is how I made My selection.
Nice.
All right. So let's start off with our number 4.
With the fourth pick,
Round 4.
I'm in no mood for your wisecrack. Let's get it on.
All right. We're gonna start from my right. It's David. David, what is your number 4?
Okay, so my number 4 is going to be the newest, like most recent killer, right, from the most recent movie, and that is Officer Wayne Mackey from Summer of '84.
Oh God
So
damn, that is a good pick. I didn't even think about him.
It's so good. It was actually one of the first ones that popped into my mind, like before I started looking at movies. Coincidentally, my number 1 didn't pop into my mind until I saw the movie. I was like, oh wow, that's one of them. But this one did almost right away. It's a movie that kind of leaves a lasting impression on you because of how normal everything is. The movie, I've talked about it a little bit on another episode. I think it had to do with movie soundtracks or movie scores, because it's got this great like retro synthwave score. And the movie was made by the same directing trio that made the movie Turbo Kid. I don't know if anyone has seen Turbo Kid, but it's got this like very cool like retro flashback thing going on. So it takes place in the summer of '84, and there's a group of kids, very much kind of like the Goonies. They're just enjoying their time together, and they begin to suspect that their next door neighbor, who is a police officer, is a serial killer. And he's gone from like town to town. He strikes like once every couple of years, and all of a sudden he's striking in their town. And so they become obsessed with this idea that this police officer that lives next door is a serial killer. And the more that they uncover, the more normal he seems, but there's things that are just a little bit off. And so without giving too much away, I mean, I guess I can't, like I have to. He's on my list, right? He is a serial killer, and how like depraved he is when you find out who he is, when they finally get the evidence of who this guy is, and like the extent to which he goes to cover up his killing. I mean, and the fact that he targets children, like there's this Freddy Krueger quality that he has, where it's just like, he's this nice guy next door, but who he murders are children. Like it's really creepy. And the idea that a police officer, someone who is supposed to protect and serve, is not is both timely and frightening at the same time. It's still frightening. So I think it's a fantastic movie, on top of the fact that it's a great killer. And which wasn't necessarily one of my criteria. It did not have to be a great movie, although I do think that all the movies that I've chosen are genuinely good movies. But it's a great alternative to some of these like classic Halloween movies that we watch, and it's got a really chilling ending. Like it just, you don't forget this movie. It sticks with you.
One of my favorite things about Summer of '84 was that it had funny moments, not enough that it ever like took over the whole film or anything. You definitely wouldn't even qualify it as like a dark humor or anything, but like the timing on when it decided to be funny was just amazing. The timing from all of the actors and the way that the few comedic moments were delivered were so perfect, and it would be just enough to like break the tension, and it kind of then something could catch you off guard again. It was always just enough that you would let your guard down, and they did an amazing job with that.
Yeah, and they also like, now that you're mentioning the humor, they found a way to really balance this movie out, where there's like just enough like coming of age-ness to it. There's just enough romance to it. There's just enough everything to kind of balance out this really weighty story that's there.
Yep.
All right.
That
Don't know if I've
movie
ever
came
heard out
out this year.
I think
2 years ago.
I don't know if I've ever heard of the movie. Maybe I have, and I just got to see the trailer again to remind myself. But sounds
If it's
interesting.
murder, I'll watch it.
Yeah, there's nothing supernatural about it.
Oh, there's
Yeah,
murder.
I'm in.
Oh, they be murder, y'all. All right, so we got Wayne Mackey for summer of '84. All right. Missy, who do you got for your number 4?
Okay. So since we broadened the horizons a little bit after a quick Google search, I think my number 4 is gonna be Joker.
That is also my number 4.
Wow.
That is also my number 4.
You know, I didn't even consider this pick.
Not for a second. I'm not arguing the pick. I just didn't consider
not at
it.
all. Yeah, I like it.
The Joker from last year.
You guys both going Joaquin Phoenix?
Yes.
I think that would be the way to go.
Yes.
Neri, do you want to go first?
Go ahead. Well, there's no hiding how much of a fan I am of this movie or how much of a fan I am of Joaquin Phoenix's portrayal. But let me start the timer because it's only fair. We'll start the timer for both of us. I love this movie. I love the way again the slow turn into madness and the slow descent into madness. But when he does go into madness, he fucking goes into madness, and I love everything from the shots, the cinematography of how and when, and to show how he killed people. What is it, screwdriver or the knife in the eye with the fat dude
in the apartment.
In the apartment, that's one of my favorite murders on cinematic history. I just love that scene. I love that, and the way he was laughing and how the little person couldn't fucking reach the lock to get out, and the nervousness
and he had to ask him for help.
It was so great. The nervousness of him asking. It was like funny, but at the same time, uber scary. Like you put yourself in that scenario, like you have to ask the killer to help you leave the apartment. So that scene itself, and then of course the ending, which I'm not gonna spoil for those 2 people who haven't seen the fucking movie yet. That last murder that he commits is fucking brilliant cinematic beauty, I think.
No, it's just genius.
I fucking thought it was great. I mean, I saw that movie 4 times in theaters, each time with a different person sitting next to me. And the last 3 times, because obviously the first time I didn't see it coming either, but the last 3 times I had to do everything in my power to not look at the person, like obviously face the person and be like, I want to see this motherfucking reaction. So I literally would have to just face the screen, and as much as my eyeballs could fucking force themselves to go to my left or my right, depending on where the person was sitting, like, oh man, they're gonna fucking love this. I can't wait for them to see this shit. And it didn't fail. And 2 of those people are on this podcast right now. It was Missy and David.
I jumped. I jumped. I think psychological thrillers, like the descent into madness kind of storyline, I love watching. And I think that really in that subcategory, I would say of movie genres, I think Joker is top tier, like hands down, I would say in the genre. I really the scary thing about Joker is the Arthur is right. That's his name, Arthur.
Yeah.
He's not Joker until the last 45 minutes of or whatever, an hour left of the movie. But the descent into madness and like the other thing that's I think what they did really well, at least I did. I don't know about everyone else, but I was on his side. I was sympathizing with him, and I was like, what the fuck? The system is failing him. Like he keeps getting fucked over, and they're pushing him to snap. And I'm not justifying murder, so to speak, but I think that that's really a very interesting ride to go on as a viewer. And I think that Joaquin Phoenix, in my opinion, hasn't missed yet. He's a phenomenal actor, and he deserved all the accolades and all the hype for this movie. And yeah, I think that I watched it with this guy, and he really was sitting there like trying not to watch the movie. And then the big moment hits and I was like, oh fuck. And there's still so much madness that pursues after, like, that comes after that big moment. I think they just there's nothing about this character in that movie that they didn't do correctly, and like 100% correct. So, but that being said, as much as I love this movie and I will put it on as many mountains as it earns its spot there, I probably won't watch it again. It's not like it's not a like in the background movie that I would ever watch again. But yeah, it's great. I love this movie, and I love this character. He's fantastic.
I was really super hesitant about this movie because I was terrified that they were going to turn Joker into an anti-hero. And then when they didn't, I was very pleasant. I was very, very happy. But my favorite thing about it was, without turning him into an anti-hero, they did create a scenario where, like, well, now I understand why he has a limitless supply of henchmen. Like, I can see where a certain group of people would view this guy as a leader. And they did a great job of that without, like I said, crossing that anti-hero line, which is what I was afraid they were going to do.
Yeah, but those followers usually wear a red hat. So we get it, right? Because he's a monster. But what scared me the most about this character, this person portrayed in the film, is that I believe it could really happen. I believe
it does.
Yeah, but again, to a national level where it's like on live TV, where we see somebody getting murdered on live TV. If you start Googling murders on live TV, it's happened, but like it's back in the day, and like in the 70s and 80s and shit, and those fucking tapes are lost. And again, there's only so much you could Google this shit before you start realizing I'm probably on some fucking watch list right now.
That gets you put on lists with the quickness.
Yeah. So, but it's great, man. It's fantastic. Anyways, that's our time. We did 6.5 minutes. So, but the Joker, in Joker, so it's fantastic. You know, it's funny because I saw Joker come up, the character come up on Google list, and never did I think to myself, should I put Heath Ledger on there? I never. And it's the same. They're human, so I could have put him, but I was like, no, this is the character I want to put. Because
wait, in 30 seconds, I think what this movie did was humanize the character. Like, every time that we've, as the viewer of the movie, like, you get with Jack Nicholson, you get like 20 minutes and then he becomes the Joker. You don't get that with Heath Ledger. This movie specifically, I can't speak on the TV series or any, all the stuff I haven't seen, but from what I've seen, this movie took a lot of time to show you Arthur before they showed you Joker. And that, I think the fact that they humanized him is what made him such an impactful character.
All right. So, DeBono, who did you got for number 4?
So my number 4, as I'm want to do, is going to guarantee that I don't have any sort of perfect mountain, but I love this movie with a passion. It is actually it actually is kind of a comedy that's on my list. My number 4 is Leslie Vernon from Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon.
Honorable mention for me. It was so behind it by that much.
Behind the Mask is a mockumentary that takes place in a universe where these supernatural serial killers like Jason and Freddy are real. And these are things that have actually existed. And a documentary crew starts following this guy named Leslie Vernon, who is so obsessed with it that he wants to go down in history as one of these. And so they're following him as he creates this scenario where he's going to kill all these people. He picks his final girl. He's like, she's a virgin. She'll be my final girl. She's going to prove herself. It shows him getting ready. And the one of the best things about this movie, and I'll, the killer is also spectacular, is it shows the process that would go into like all of the things that go wrong in horror movies going wrong. Like, it shows Leslie Vernon going to this barn where he's going to commit his mass murder and rigging the electrical system to fail and screwing up the things that the teenagers that he's going to kill might use as weapons. And it shows all the behind the scenes prep work that one of these killers would actually have to put in for all of these tropes to fall into place. And it's just it's wonderful. And this guy he's insane, but he's funny about it. And this is something that he genuinely wants to do because he idolizes these people. And there's a very stern turn in Act 3 where it just kind of becomes a traditional like slasher film. It's not the mockumentary footage anymore. And he does end up killing a lot of people. I mean, it's not like he doesn't do it and he, kind of made this list for no reason. He does end up killing a lot of people and pretty brutally. Yeah. But it's interesting to see the concept of somebody who decides that this is their calling in life is to be a slasher film bad guy, and everything that they would put into it. It kind of takes that element of the genre and flips it on its head. And so he becomes a guy that you're very invested in because you're interested in what he's going to do to make these things happen. Like I said, it's definitely got some gruesome deaths. He definitely earns a spot as a killer, but also very funny. Just a spectacular movie. And a great killer to boot. So Leslie Vernon from Behind the Mask is my number 4.
This was the first movie, I think, that picked up where the original Scream left off, in that it's taking the standard tropes of a horror movie and slasher movies specifically, right? And re-examining them and tearing them apart and saying, well, how can we do something new with this, right? It was hyper aware of its of its own mythology, and Leslie Vernon is such a compelling and likable guy, even though he's
that's what's so bizarre.
He's totally despicable, but he's so likable also because we understand him, because we're kind of like that too, in a sense, where like this movie came out right around the time where like becoming an influencer was a thing, and you wanted to kind of do what that other person was doing. So how do I get there? Let me do what they have done, and I'll go along that path. It was just brilliant. I love this movie. I love this pick. Thank you so much for picking it.
Yeah, it sounds great. I had never heard of it, but it sounds like something that I would be interested in.
It's in the family share, Harry.
Oh man, and it's got cameos from tons of like horror movie staples. Like Robert Englund's in it, and just a bunch of people have little cameos. Just great movie.
All right. So our number 4s were Wayne Mackey from Summer of '84, Joker from Joker, Leslie Vernon from Behind the Mask, and Joker from Joker again. Here we go.
Round 3.
3 is a magic number. Yes, it is.
All right, David. What is? I don't know why I said your name like E.T. David. That was weird. That was just a weird David. What is your number 3?
My number 3 is from one of the more lesser known, but still like it's got a cult following pseudo slasher. It's kind of more of a thriller from the 80s featuring Terry O'Quinn, and it's Jerry Blake from The Stepfather. And
man, I haven't seen that movie in such a long fucking time, dude.
That movie.
There's a Jerry Blake or Terry Blake?
Jerry Blake.
Jerry Blake. I haven't seen that movie.
He's played by Terry O'Quinn. From Lost and from just a bunch of other stuff. But
the movie is called The Stepfather.
The movie's called The Stepfather. They remade it years later. It had
2009.
It 2009. It had 2 sequels. The second one was still quite good, and The third one, I got to be honest, I don't remember anything about.
I don't. I did. I think I saw pieces of part two, but man, part one, I was a kid. That shit scared the fuck
Yeah,
out of me,
it's
dude.
it's a legitimately scary movie without really being like an honest to goodness horror movie. I think it's more of a thriller than a horror movie, but it also has like slasher tropes in there thrown in for good measure. And
There's a
so
blind guy. Everything. It has everything. That movie
so
has everything.
Jerry is a man, like the movie starts with him like naked in a bathroom, having just washed all this blood off of himself, and he's shaving his face, and so like you can tell that something has gone horribly wrong, right? And then it flashes forward, and he's living with a family, and he seems to be a totally normal guy. And so this is his MO. He finds a woman who is looking for someone to help her out. Typically, this is a woman who's been divorced, who's got kids, and so he kind of takes on that role of the being the husband that she wishes the last one was, and he kind of comes.
One of my
A
favorite
cautionary
movie posters.
tale.
Yeah.
One of my favorite movie posters, to be honest with you. I really, it has him in the background, then a wedding cake in the foreground, and has a knife splitting up the topper, the wedding cake topper, and that's how, like, and then that becomes one of the letters of stepfather. I don't remember.
I think
But it was
that's
fucking.
the poster for part 2.
Is it?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, the poster for part 1, I seem to remember being him looking in a mirror, and then the mirror is all foggy, and then what's written like on the fog of the mirror is who are we now? So the whole thing is that like he is like really unstable, and he assumes this new personality, but he reaches a point where he just like he can't control it anymore, and his inner demon starts coming out, and he starts planning the murder. He starts finding a new place where he's going to move to, and he plans everything out so perfectly before it happens. So this is something that has happened countless times before. The whole thing with this movie is that he starts forgetting which person he is with this family. So he starts behaving erratically. He starts going by different names. He starts calling his wife and kids different names, and this sort of unraveling of his multiple personalities starts coming out in just the most terrifying way. And it's so real, right? Like Missy, you said that like there's nothing scarier than humanity. There's nothing scarier than us. And I think that this is a movie that I can imagine like reading a story like this. I just saw a documentary on Netflix about a guy who like murdered his wife and daughters. And
Oh yeah, my wife's waiting to watch that.
yeah, it was really good.
So fucking weird.
You know,
That
and
sounds so weird. My wife's waiting to watch that documentary about a husband that kills her wife. She's waiting to.
Yeah, she's hyped.
that's the sort of stuff
she's watching
that
on the
scares
couch
us.
with a fucking knife. She's just like,
This is America.
This is how I watch a documentary about this. Honey, are you gonna come? No, you gonna stay awake? That's cool. That's probably so bad.
So yeah, man, Terry O'Quinn is just such a phenomenal actor, and he scares you. He really does scare you, and you don't have to be a child, Mary, to be scared. It is terrifying, absolutely terrifying.
It is terrifying.
And there's nothing supernatural. It's just this is the way a sick mind works.
Yeah.
They did a decent job with the remake too, but it doesn't touch the original.
No.
I've seen them both, and the original is far scarier.
Yeah, and they did the same thing with like The Hitcher around that same time, where they remade The Hitcher, and same thing. It was
They remade
it was good. It was serviceable, but not. They remade I Spit on Your Grave. Yeah,
They did remake I Spit on Your Grave, and I'm not a fan. Did not.
What
like
is that
the remake.
about?
I Spit on Your Grave.
it's a
Go spitting on
It's
grave.
murder revenge porn.
yeah.
Yeah, like she gets raped and then murders a bunch of people as revenge, and it's
Oh,
Gorno.
good for her.
They leave her for dead, and they think she's dead. So when she comes back, they assume that she's like some specter come back to get him, which she kind of is.
Holy shit.
Spoiler.
God, that was. I know that's not the one we're talking about, but that is the first time I remember seeing a movie and being like, dear God, what can't they do?
Right.
All right, Missy, what is your number 3?
My number 3 is Peter Foley of Copycat.
Oh my God.
That is an honorable mention. That is actually the first movie I thought of.
I completely forgot about that movie.
Surprised it's not on your list, Missy or Neri.
I really
they would say that because when we did Shiver, when we were doing Shiver, the horror movie podcast, I try to get this movie on the list, because we were rotating between the 3 guys. Like, all right, each week one of us picks a movie, and I try to pick Copycat multiple times, and I had to be told by both other panelists, it's not a fucking horror movie. You know, it scared me. And they're like, yeah, because you're a pussy. So it can't fucking.
Harry Connick Jr., right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So
yeah.
where in Joker you're watching the descent into madness. In Copycat, you're just thrown right the fuck in. You're just it's crazy all around. The first time I ever watched this movie was because in my AP psychology class, my teacher, my senior year of high school, my teacher, the last 9 weeks, all she did was show us psychological thrillers, which was fucking fantastic.
Was she going through a divorce or something? Like, why is she set up on her students? Like, all psychological thrillers, not one just like fucking, hey, the Disney movie. Like, there's nothing. It's all dark.
So anyway, what I love about this movie, aside from Harry Connick Jr. scaring the shit out of me, because that motherfucker, as charming as he is in other movies, he lets loose on this one for sure. I think this came out before what the fuck was that movie that I love so much?
Floats.
Fuck you. Yes. This movie came out before
right,
that.
but she was so mad.
I fucking hate when he does that. So it was really hard.
Which is the movie that I love so much? The chick flick. Fucking son of a bitch. God damn it.
You need to stop my timer every time you troll me, you fucker.
It's like the debate over
a
here.
great cast. Sigourney Weaver with her agoraphobia, which I was like relatable. Holly Hunter
Weaver is such an underrated performance. I think this is such an underrated performance because she gets a lot of credit, and it's always deserved for these major blockbuster performances in blockbusters. But this is not a blockbuster film. This didn't break the bank. This wasn't like, and this is such an underrated performance by Sigourney Weaver. It was fucking tastic.
It did 32 million in the box office, and the budget was 20 million. So it didn't break the bank for 95 anyway. And then obviously, I think that the other part that's really chilling about this was to just the idea that usually, like, I guess in my 18-year-old brain, it was like, oh, murders, like it's a murder and that's it. But for those murderers that are like the Dahmers and all the fucking iconic murders, like there are people that like look at that shit and they're like, when I grow up, that's what I want to do. And that's fucking scary, especially if you want to go on a date. Just saying. So yeah, I love this movie. I love this. I mean, this is not another one that I would just like throw on to have in the background because it's fucking terrifying. But the entire aspect of the fact that like the entire psychological aspect of this movie, which I would agree that it's not 100. It leans more towards thriller than it does horror movie. But again, it's not my wheelhouse, so that's what I had to go with.
The two things about this movie. One, there's a scene where he comes like over the bathroom stall with garrote wire that still haunts my dreams. And two, this is the first time I ever knew anything about Harry Connick Jr. So then it was like when I heard him playing, just like jazz piano music. He's like, I'm from New Orleans. I was like, motherfucker, I know you. Like this is terrifying that you can pretend to do this now.
When he had a talk show, I was like, this is very suspicious. I don't trust this whatsoever. Yeah, so that's my 3.
Yeah, I'm that's a great pick, BFF. It really is. I didn't pick it because honestly it made my honorable mention list, but like I said, I had 6 choices, and then just the other ones. I think because the other ones I've seen more recently, but it's fucking it was great. Great choice, great choice. All right, the Bono, what do we got?
Okay, so for my number 3, I'm hoping maybe some of you guys, at least maybe David, has seen these movies. It is a character.
Just acknowledge that David is your
right.
target audience. If the other 2 happen to get it, it's a nice.
It is a character who, over the course of 2 movies, has gone by 2 different names, so we don't actually know what his real name is. In the first one, he goes by Joseph, and the second one, he goes by Aaron. It's from a movie called Creep. Played by Mark Duplass of The League. If you watch The League, he plays Pete Eckhart on The League. Mark Duplass plays this character named Joseph in Creep, and then Aaron is his name in the sequel Creep 2, but it is the same character. The only way to really talk about this movie is I got to get kind of spoilery, but I won't give away some of the big stuff.
I'm
so
never
essentially,
gonna watch it.
So I have not seen this. I will watch it, but the good thing is that I'm gonna forget all about this spoiler in like 5 minutes.
So Creep is like a found footage type movie where Joseph, played by Mark Duplass, he pays this guy to come out and film him because he wants to like make a movie about his life or whatever. And he spends the whole movie just like walking this guy around his house and talking with him. And sometimes he's really funny and sometimes he's really creepy. And it's genuinely just unnerving. It's not a movie that's gonna have, it doesn't have jump scares. It's just unsettling the entire time. You're never comfortable the entire time you're watching the movie Creep, and you're just trying to figure out what's going on. Now, obviously, since I put him on this list of killers, you know that he eventually ends up killing someone. And so he does end up eventually, like I said, to understand why he's on this list, he does end up eventually killing the guy who he invited over to make this movie. And then you find out that he does this on a regular basis. But then in the second one, they go in, it's deeper into what makes this guy. And there's this really freaking just awful thing where you realize that this is a guy. If you read or study serial killers, you know there's like a handful of reasons why they do it, and this is a guy who it's not necessarily the kill that he's in it for. It's the relationship that he builds with the person that he plans on killing. Where he gets his jollies is befriending a stranger on a very deep level before he murders them. And that's very, very creepy to me. For the rest of my list, these are all people who, if they were real, would just be genuinely terrifying. And this idea that there's somebody out there that killing is the end result, but that's not necessarily exactly what they're in it for. They're in it for this one moment of very deep friendship that in their mind has to end with a murder for it to be completed. And it's so bizarre. And especially if you're familiar with The League and you just know him as Pete Eckhart. And I don't know if you guys have ever watched The League or not, he's just super goofy. He's super goofy man-child who plays fantasy football, and that's his whole damn life is drinking and playing fantasy football. And to see him play this character, which he co-wrote this movie. Yeah, he co-wrote this movie with Patrick Weiss, and it turns out, by the way, that Mark Duplass is he's got a lot of weird things banging around in his head. Since The League, he's done some very odd things, like Room 217 on HBO. But anyway, it's called Creep. There's a sequel, and you watch Creep, and you can't fathom why there would be a sequel. But I promise you, if you like Creep, watch Creep 2, because it does everything that Creep did, and it does it better, and freakier and weirder, and they're just amazing. And if you can walk away from Creep and disagree with the fact that this guy belongs on one of these lists, then you watched a different movie than me, because he's absolutely terrifying without being overtly scary, and I love that.
Does the TLC's Creep play at any point in time in this movie?
Yes, also Radiohead's Creep.
Great. I just wanted to make sure.
And
that was my follow-up question.
I feel like there's another band that I should be able to name a song Creep by, but I'm out. So there's one I'm forgetting now.
Yeah, that would be a great song that they play as he's chasing whoever the fuck he's gonna kill. As I creep, yeah. Sorry. All right, so we have a second here. We have
your number 4. Wait, you haven't done yours yet, Neri.
I know. I'm getting to it.
I thought you were about to move on.
Kind of making a decision right now. Trying to buy myself some time by vetting a bit. All right.
You're vamping. I see.
Vamping as I vamp. Yeah. All right. My number 3. It's so hard to get rid to swap my number 3. But my number 3 is gonna be Peyton, played by Rebecca De Mornay, and The Hand That Rocks the Cradle.
Nice.
Oh, good pick.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen, and I'll tell you who she replaced in my honorable mentions, and you're gonna be like, you're fucking crazy. But here's in the Bona talking about Creep and how creepy the whole scenario was. Rebecca De Mornay was like a sex symbol. So in that time frame, and I was of that age where I was
yeah.
Well, she's not doing movies anymore. Now she's just on my OnlyFans. So what the fuck am I? I mean, it's not the same thing. What has Rebecca De Mornay done in the last 20 years? You don't know what the fuck she's done.
She's in my head movies.
Yeah, she makes my other parts cry.
She makes the one eye rain. My head movies of Rebecca De Mornay make my one eye rain.
Recording with guys is so much fun.
Rebecca De Mornay.
I'm glad someone laughed.
She was in Jessica Jones.
She was in Jessica Jones?
Yeah.
Season 1?
Yes, I believe.
She was. Yeah, she was Dorothy.
Who's Dorothy?
Dorothy.
You know,
Walker.
Dorothy.
Little dog.
Anyways,
drops a house.
Carry on. It was Rebecca De Mornay. Just take my word for it.
All right. Rebecca De Mornay was she was a crazy sex symbol in the 90s, late 80s or 90s, and as a young boy coming up during those times, watching her movies, I discovered a lot about myself during those years. But to watch her in this movie in Hand That Rocks the Cradle, fuck, there you go. Okay, I got 3 minutes left. And to watch her in Hand That Rocks the Cradle, I got it was a different Rebecca De Mornay. Like, it was creepy as fuck. She plays a nanny that she gets a job with a family that's looking for a live-in nanny, and she starts doing really creepy shit where she starts trying to insert herself as the mother figure of this newborn child. And something's off about her, but the mom can never really tell, like, that seems off. And all of a sudden the baby's not taking my milk anymore because Rebecca De Mornay started fucking breastfeeding the baby herself. So the baby no longer fucking took the real mom's milk. It's that kind of shit. And then when the
De Mornay got that better titty milk.
Even as a 9-year-old, I was like, we know why the baby no longer wants that other titty. That fucking makes
9? You were 9?
What year did this movie come out? Hand That Rocks the Cradle came out in
92.
I'm sorry?
I think it came out in 92.
I'm sorry. I apologize. I was 11. That's crazy. 9-year-old would never do that. But as an 11-year-old, I was like, that titty sucks. Rebecca De Mornay's titty's better. That other titty, get another job. But yeah, it's a fantastic. It was a fantastic psychological thriller. I love the movie. And
yeah, that's why you fucking liked it, you dirty.
Yeah, I mean, I had to. In every month, and I put a Rebecca De Mornay movie in every month, and it was gonna be either this one or Sleeping with the Enemy.
Risky business.
She's not in Sleeping with the Enemy. What are you talking
She's not a
about?
Sleeping with the Enemy. I'm thinking about the other one, the one with Antonio Banderas. That one was fucking. She was a smoke show in that one. That was one of my favorite sex scenes. What movie was that with her and Antonio?
I don't remember.
Antonio, because he's your buddy.
Yeah, well, we're both of Hispanic descent. I could say that shit.
By the way, she wasn't Jessica Jones, and she did play a lady named Dorothy Walker.
Yeah, I just asked who Dorothy was. I don't know who the fuck Dorothy is. That's all I asked.
You know, the girl.
The girl. All right, so that's it. My time is up. I just wanted to talk about Rebecca De Mornay's fine ass. So my number 4 is Peyton and the Rock's the Cradle.
Number 3.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That was your number 3,
apologize.
drunkie.
All right. Hand that rocks my jock.
Never talk to strangers.
There it is. Never talk to strangers, bro. That sex scene. Oh my god.
Never seen it.
Chapter 14.
Good sex scene, huh?
So fucking good. So fucking good. Hold on, give me a second.
Ay, ay, ay.
All right. So for the number 3s, we had Jerry Blake from Stepfather, Peter Foley from Copycat, Joseph from Creep, and Peyton from Hand That Rocks the Cradle.
Round 2.
Dose, the sequel to Uno.
All right. Number 2. David, hit me with your number 2, man.
All right, so this is where my list gets into the very well-known territory. I thought about keeping the list fairly obscure with guys like Mackie and Blake, and there were certainly more obscure ones that I could have gone with, but I kind of decided, you know what? If I'm being honest with myself, these two, despite the fact that they are, like supremely well-known, they really are my favorite natural human killers. So my number 2 is Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series.
You know, I never even thought of that. I didn't.
Really?
I ended up having to move. I ended up moving him down to honorable mention to put Leslie Vernon on my list.
I never thought
okay, well,
of that.
I'm glad you did that because we get to talk about both of them.
Wow. That's a great pick, man, because I fucking love that movie.
I know. So, and the first one really is a masterpiece.
Is it face, comma, leather? Or is it all one name like Madonna?
It's all one name like Madonna.
All right, all one name, Leatherface. All right.
Yeah. So Leatherface is a character whose psychology is actually really interesting, and his dynamic within the family is explored in the original chronology. So when you look at the first 4 Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies, each one kind of delves a little deeper into Leatherface and why Leatherface is the way that he is. And I mean, far and away, the original is the best movie, and I think he's at his scariest in that movie. But Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 actually does go into the dynamic of the family and why Leatherface is like serves the role that he does within the family. And you listen to Gunnar Hansen, the guy that played Leatherface in the original movie, talk about Leatherface, and he says that Leatherface obviously has a handicap, right? And what he did is he played Leatherface as a child. He said, I kind of put myself in the mindset of a child. And so when one of my favorite scenes in that first movie is the very first kill. when the guy walks into the house and Leatherface opens that sliding door and he sees the guy there, Leatherface freaks out and he bangs the guy on the head with the mallet, right? And the guy's just like kind of shaking there on the floor, and Leatherface just starts squealing because he's terrified. Like Leatherface is scared. And I think that's a really like real reaction. Like, I'm scared. I don't know what to do. So I'm just going to do what I know. I'm going to do what is shown to me, what is taught to me. Leatherface is totally a product of his environment. And you look at some of the other members of his family, which were introduced to some of them in the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We're introduced to more of them in the second one. And we really kind of dig deep into the kind of psychology of these people. Leatherface is not even the scariest of that group.
No.
Not at all. You know, Drayton, which is the older brother, is probably the scariest, and he rules with an iron fist. And we see this Leatherface who's really a scared child, but because he's so terrified of what his older brother may do to him, he's forced to take on all these different personalities. He's got, and this is something you don't really notice unless you've seen the movie a couple of times. And this new 4K transfer that they have of the movie is absolutely gorgeous. And you really do see this stuff. He's got different masks for different occasions. He doesn't just wear the one face mask. And depending on what he's doing, if he's cooking, he's wearing one. If he's serving dinner, he's wearing another. And this idea of gender is really interesting in how he behaves, because he'll wear a tie and dress clothes when he's kind of like preparing the meal, but when he's serving, he's wearing a dress. He's wearing makeup. This idea that like there are certain like routines that certain genders need to fall under that Tobe Hooper was exploring and kind of challenging. So yeah, he's a super interesting character who's brutal and gruesome, and I fucking love him and all his kills.
It's funny that the guy played him like a child, just like the actor who played Jar Jar also played him like a and they're both psychotic. All right.
Missy,
yeah, I love that.
you had a question, Missy?
Oh, so you said that we find out why he is the way. Why is he the way that, like, why does he kill people? Do we ever find out, or it's just like the trauma?
It's one of those things that's kind of hinted at, but he's like he was born, the family inbreeds, and so he's a product of that inbreeding. And so, you know, that sort of, you know, what
trauma
happens with inbreeding, you know, plus the fact that these are cannibals, the fact that they abuse him. He is bigger than they are, so they're afraid of him, but he becomes afraid of them, you know, so they kind of repress him. It's a whole mixture of things. The first two movies, I think, are kind of like necessary viewing, the required viewing for a horror movie fan.
All right, we gotta go.
Got it.
So Leatherface, fantastic. Missy, what is your number 2?
My number 2 is a very underrated Jennifer Lopez movie, and it's Carl Rudolph Steger from The Cell.
From The Cell, played by Vincent D'Onofrio.
Correct.
Such a great pick.
That movie is another one that's it leans towards psychological, but what I like about this portrayal is that usually you can track what you're watching, like you can follow the logic, whether or not you agree with it or not, that's different. This movie gives you, like, you're inside the brain of a crazy person, and what you see stays with you because it's fucking fucked up. I like the idea of the movie was such I don't want to say revolutionary because I know it's a trigger word, but it was because the proposed treatment for trying to find his latest victim was very out of the box, at least from what I remember. And I
Was
haven't
it
seen
out of the
something.
cell?
So anyway, where for those of you listening who or I don't know if all of you have seen it, but it's essentially Jennifer Lopez plays a psychologist who, long story short, they're trying to find this guy's latest victim. He traps him in a cell and then keeps him there, and then slowly starts filling the cell with water until obviously they drown and die.
Which is a horrifying way to die.
Horrifying way. When they cut to the end, spoiler alert, when they cut to the end where they find the girl and you spend a few minutes with her, like that stays with you because that's fucking awful. An awful way to torture somebody. So anyway, Jennifer Lopez ends up going into his mind through some revolutionary therapeutic tool. And what she finds is how do you say, a can of worms. And eventually the big twist is that I think at some point, I haven't seen it in a while, so the plot is blurry a little bit, but I think what ends up happening is that she ends up trying to pull him into her brain, and then that does not work because then she ends up losing it for a little bit too. So, but overall, aside from it being a fantastic movie, and I honestly in the Jennifer Lopez filmography, I think it's a super underrated movie that she did early on in her career. The inside scoop into a crazy person brain, that shit's scary. And I don't think that a lot of movies, at least from what it's like nothing compared to what regular fans of horror movies would watch. But at least from what I've seen, I've never seen that kind of 3D IMAX experience inside of a killer's brain. And yeah.
I mean, it's no Leprechaun, but it'll do.
she tries to pull it. Yeah, she does try to pull him into her brain because in the same type of way that if you can pull Freddy into reality, then you can start controlling the narrative. That's the theory behind that. One of the creepiest things about this movie is the fact that while in his brain, she meets the kid version of him that's stuck. And it's the kid. It's before he became this killer. Monster, and she starts beginning to understand kind of, where things went horribly wrong. And there's so many great things that they do with this movie as a whole, since it takes place in his brain, like you're saying, where it's just they did a great job with that. As soon as you said Jennifer Lopez, I got really hyped because I considered putting that one on my list. I do love The Cell.
Yeah.
For me, it was either going to be The Cell, Enough, The Boy Next Door, or
Angel Eyes.
Angel Eyes with the top. So that's where my heart lies. Is in
not Money Train.
Well, we're talking about the good ones here. All right, so
you missed out of sight.
Okay. Was she in Leprechaun? Is that the joke you were making earlier, David?
Yes,
yeah.
She was not in Leprechaun. That was Jennifer Aniston.
I thought that was Jennifer Aniston.
Oh wait, yes. My bad. You said
wrong, Jennifer.
You said
same name.
Sorry.
One is white and the other one has a booty.
Like the best booty.
Pretty much.
I should have put vodka in my Diet Coke.
That's why I was confused when you said Leprechaun. I was like, "Fuck, man! Did I miss Jennifer Lopez being in?" And I was like, "Oh."
You didn't, right, and you also didn't miss. You didn't miss Jennifer Aniston and being in Leprechaun either.
No, you didn't. I've had a couple of these. Trying
to our YouTube viewers, you can
drown my
see
sorrow.
What you could see what Dave is drinking. He had a Cash App incident, and he's gonna go ahead and keep drinking that.
That's not why I'm sad.
Deborah, what do you got for your number 2?
I'm not going to do a ton of lead in here because I think I might get tabled. My number 2 is Hannibal Lecter.
Table.
Okay.
Right.
And wait, sorry. Let me go back. Doctor.
Yeah, don't forget the doctor. That's
yes,
really important.
Excuse me. Put some respect on it.
8 years of
Cannibal Medical School.
Yeah, he didn't go. He didn't go through 8 years of cannibal medical school to be called Mister. Thank you very much.
To be called Mr.
all right.
Lecter.
We called Mister.
My number 2 is might have this. This is a toss up between who has a higher body count, but my number 2 may have the highest body count of my list. Maybe is Patrick
John
Bateman
Rambo.
in American Psycho. John Rambo is a fucking
Honorable
killer.
mention.
Man, John Rambo would have been amazing to have on the fucking list. He fucking killed a lot of people, man.
John
Oh, man. John Matrix.
Yeah.
John Matrix got way more, 80 fucking people in one movie, dude.
Yeah.
Shit. Now I'm disappointed in my fucking list. God
Me too.
damn it. Stupid.
All right, I'm changing my
They
number
played
one.
humans. They fucking played humans. Whatever. I guess my shitty list will have to continue now. I already picked it. Patrick Bateman in American Psycho.
That's a great pick, man.
Yeah, honorable mention from me.
It's an okay pick. Fucking Rambo would have been better.
He can't even talk about it now. He's so disappointed in himself.
Everything just seems lackluster now.
Yeah. American Psycho. He fucks a lot and he fucking kills bitches. Whatever, man.
He's into business cards.
Yeah. So it is the like quintessential 80s, like what from my understanding of what it was to be a white man businessman in the 80s. It was like, if you're going to be in New York and it's all about capitalism, it's all about how much money you make, it's all about you're trying to keep up with the Joneses and how important your business card is, like, oh, white on white and look at this kind of paper and all this crazy shit. It's the fucking like the title says, he's a psycho, he's a fucking psychopath. He invites women to his place and has consensual sex, from what I'm understanding, right? The movie, there was consensual sex.
No, it was consensual sex.
The only
murder,
thing
not so much.
That was the one part that wasn't.
What?
Murder wasn't consensual.
No.
No, it was.
I'm saying, no, it was. I had to like remind myself. I'm like, wait, it wasn't like rape or anything. No, he was having consensual sex with these women. He was a rich white dude in New York in the 80s. It was like these, that was the times where if you had money.
So if Gordon Gekko could kill.
Yeah, like that. It's like that. That's how it was. So so he invites these women. Like I rather enjoyed like the long monologues that this guy would do while he's having sex, like while he's doing everything, really having sex, even while he's killing them, he's having fucking like monologues with himself. It's like fucking bananas. It's bonkers. Has a million great scenes in it, including when he killed Jared Leto. And he sat him down in his apartment that was all covered in plastic, which is already fucking sign number one, like fucking red flag, something's bad's gonna happen. But he has this long monologue, and then he's like jealous of Jared Leto for whatever the fucking reason, and then he swings an axe from behind, like, and you just don't see it coming because he has these long fucking monologues about the mundane shit, about how great Genesis' new album is and why Phil Collins is a genius, and he breaks down all these amazing things about. It's like if Dave became a serial killer and he just started talking about all the things that he normally talks about. You don't expect those conversations to come out of a fucking serial killer, and that's exactly what it turns out to be. Anyways,
the best way to put
it's fantastic. Yeah. One of my favorite scenes is the stairwell scene with the chainsaw. That's one of my favorite scenes, I think, in cinema history as far as murders are concerned. It's right up there, man. I fucking love it. But it is, if you haven't seen it, it's. I remember watching this movie and introducing this movie to a woman who is now an ex-girlfriend of mine, and I was like, oh, look at this movie. Like, I was trying to, like, I guess we were just both too young for me to explain and like why it's a great movie. And I was just like, it's awesome. Like, that was my level of fucking trying to sell this. It's awesome. And then and then at one point he kills a dog, and that's it. For her, it was like, how the fuck can you watch this? And I was like, it's acting. It's not fucking real. I don't know how to explain that because I'm only 22 and it's stupid. But yeah, I just love this fucking movie.
Did you get a
The
second
acting
date?
is superb. The acting is superb.
The one of the reasons that I ended up not putting him onto my list is because a while back, I don't know, maybe 5 or so years ago, I read a really good hypothesis on the fact that maybe Patrick Bateman didn't actually kill anybody in the movie American Psycho.
Yeah,
and
I heard that too. Yeah,
that he's just that he's just a crazy person and living out these fantasies in his head is how he copes with the stress of everything. And it really stuck with me. Watched American Psycho afterwards, and I was like, damn, maybe he didn't actually kill anybody. I think it's a great pick, but that's how I talked myself out of putting Bateman on my list.
You're completely right. I thought about that as well. And it leaves you with this like, oh, it could be, right? But they've said the same thing about Joker, about how Joker didn't really kill anybody.
Right.
He was just in the mental institution the whole time. Like it wasn't a thing. But even if you believe that from the Joker, you still got to believe that he killed somebody because at the end, in the mental institution, he has bloody footprints. So he killed somebody. Or at least fucking hit them over the head with a lot of blood. There's a lot of blood gushing. But yeah, you're right. I've heard that same theory that he didn't really kill anybody. That's all in his head, which I think adds to the craziness. Like he's like the title.
It really does. I love
it. Just adds to it. So
yeah,
that's it. That's my number 2. All right. My time ran out. All right. So number 2s are Leatherface from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Carl Rudolph from The Cell, Hannibal Lecter. I don't know what movie you're selecting specifically, but Hannibal Lecter, and then Patrick Bateman from American Psycho. Here we go.
Round.
Oh, sorry, we didn't do honorable mentions.
Oh,
that's right.
Honorable mentions. David, what is your honorable mention?
Oh my God! All right, so let's go.
Buckle up, y'all.
Lord Summerisle from The Wicker Man, Kurt Duncan from When a Stranger Calls, the Phantom Killer from The Town That Dreaded Sundown, the Firefly family from The Devil's Rejects, the Phantom from The Phantom of the Opera, Frank Zito from Maniac, which is a fantastic character study.
I also have Frank Zito on honorable mentions. This is so good.
So good.
But you already picked 4.
Yeah, no, I've picked more, and you lost count. The Strangers from The Strangers. Are you lowering my volume? And the Prowler from The Prowler. Travis Bickle, Taxi Driver.
Taxi
Driver. Missy, what are your honorable mentions?
Jigsaw.
You said that with such confidence.
You're right. Yeah.
Yes,
why did you said that like you were confused?
Because she wasn't 100% sure that it wasn't a possessed ventriloquist doll. She had to think about it.
The amount of alcohol I had to take to drink to get through those movies. Also, I didn't come out into this mountain with a lot of confidence, so I'm waiting for the moment where I shit the bed. So that's almost like Jigsaw.
That's a great pick.
I would put I don't know that I don't remember if she kills anyone, but I want to put Annie Wilkes from Misery. She does kill people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
So she's an honorable
mention.
Yeah.
She got some bodies under her belt.
Crazy. And I don't know. I'm pushing it here, but I would put Maleficent on there because that bitch scared the shit out of me when I was a kid.
Did she kill people? Did Maleficent kill people?
I don't care.
I don't think she killed anyone.
She attempted to, but the good fairies stopped it.
That's a fair point.
There you go. I shot the bed.
Attempted murderess.
Yeah, she's an attempted murderess.
Well, then we can scratch her off. I don't care.
DeBono, who did you pick? Honorable mentions.
All of mine have been mentioned for the most part, except for one, stuntman Mike McKay from the movie Death Proof.
I didn't even think of this.
That is a great one.
I love Death Proof so much. Kurt Russell just fucking incredible. In this movie, it's Tarantino, just Tarantino on Tarantino with Kurt Russell pulling it off. And Mike McKay he was a lot of damn fun to watch in that movie.
He was great. He was fucking great. Yeah, I think that's such an underrated Tarantino movie, man.
Yeah.
My honorable mentions are Annie Wilkes, which was gonna be my number 3, but I moved her down to moved her down because I wanted Rebecca De Mornay in my list. But Annie Wilkes in Misery was fantastic. She was great. She did not kill who she wanted to kill, but she killed the sheriff and she killed a bunch of other people. Yeah, she got some bodies under her belt. But she was great. John Doe from Seven was pretty fucking scary. And then who else? John Rambo and John Rambo and John Matrix. Those are my honorable mentions. All Johns except for Annie Wilkes. All right, number ones.
Round 1. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back.
Do it! Do it! Come on! Come on!
I mean, he's in the fucking song. I could have just put it.
You could have just stopped and like edited that out and just replaced it.
It's fucking. It's all, no, I don't want to cheat. All right, David, who do you got for your number 1?
My number 1 did not immediately come to me, and I felt like an absolute failure when I realized that he didn't come to me immediately, and it's Norman Bates from Psycho.
Yeah, it's a good one, man. It's so good.
Which one? Which version?
So here's the thing: is we were not tasked with picking one specific movie. And
okay,
so
it is from a movie, though.
Well, it's from the first 3.
Oh, okay.
The original.
So not Vince Vaughn.
No, not Vince Vaughn.
I was gonna go. With Vince
oh,
Vaughn,
you meant which actor? Got you. Okay.
Yeah.
So no. I'm talking about Anthony Perkins. Perkins plays this character so perfectly. He's meek. He's kind, he's caring, and there's the first time you watch this movie, there is like zero indication that he is the killer. And when you see him in the prison cell at the end of the movie, and you hear the voiceover, it's chilling. Not to mention the first time you actually see him in the Norma Bates outfit with the wig on, coming into that room with the knife, it still scares me. It still terrifies me. We see him throughout the course of those 3 movies become what we assume is rehabilitated in the second one. And he believes that he's going crazy, only to find out that he's not actually killing anyone until the very end of the movie, when he kind of falls back into that sort of behavior again, where he's kind of driven to it by the family of a victim. And then in the third one, where he is just even more insane than he was before. The second and third one came out 20 years later, in the midst of the slasher craze of the 80s. And they do feel very 80s. That it doesn't feel very much like Psycho. But to their credit, they're still fantastic. And he is, I think, much more brutal and aggressive in that third Psycho movie. Like, he is a force to be reckoned with. But it's the psychological aspect of that first one that gets under my skin. And just hearing him walk up to the house and scream, "Oh, mother!" And then later there was no one there. Like, he's just that out of his mind. He's that crazy. He is, would it not have been for the fact that Janet Leigh's sister comes looking for her, no one would have ever known. How many times has he done this? He operates, this out of the way motel. It was perfect for him. And I'm sure that was by design. That's not something they ever really go into in the movie series. And I didn't see an awful lot of Bates Motel, so I don't know if that was something that was by design. But it's
that'd be great. A chain. They become a chain in the franchisee. It's like there's a list. If you want to be a franchisee owner, there's a list. Do you dress up as your mother? Kind of a big
sorry.
deal.
And one of the greatest kills in any horror movie is Psycho 2 or 3. I can't remember which one it is now. Scissors down the throat. It is just brutal, absolutely brutal. Some of the best gore effects in those two movies there. Yeah, so good.
Yeah, I purposely didn't name him as an honorable mention just in case anybody had him as number one. My favorite thing about the character of Norman Bates is that movie is 60 years old, and it still stands as something that it's still like a relevant pop culture reference. It's still something that people understand when you talk about it. That is something that is stuck with and become just a major part of American culture. And it's just, man, so good. God, such a great pick. And I honestly didn't even think that Vince Vaughn did a terrible job. It just wasn't as good as the 60. But I thought that Vince Vaughn did a good job.
That whole movie was actually good. The remake, I mean, I don't know why you do a shot-by-shot remake. I have no idea why.
That's the issue with the movie. It's just a shot-for-shot remake.
Yeah,
and at that point,
but it's
why
still
do
a good
it?
fucking movie. But it's still a good fucking movie.
Because you're doing a shot-for-shot remake of a perfect movie.
Right.
Not really perfect. It was black and white, so it's not really perfect.
God, I fucking hate you so much.
If it wasn't black and white, you'd be able to tell that the blood was chocolate syrup.
Thank you.
It's funny when it happens to somebody else.
All right. Speaking of which, Missy, your turn. What is your number one?
Okay. So remember in the beginning when I said that there's no greater threat to humans than other humans?
Mm-hmm.
That's 100% where I'm basing my number one pick from. They technically don't kill anyone, much like just Jigsaw, but yeah. So my number one is the New Founding Fathers of America from the Purge movies. And I know that what's terrifying about it is that the parallels between the movies and real life kind of relevant. Anytime, and it's not like I'm not trying to spin it into political, but anytime somebody mentions Antifa, I'm like, is that the New Founding Fathers of America? Like I'm very confused what the fuck that means. And I just think it speaks to these movies are really good experiment, like just I guess a conversation starter if you want to have this kind of conversation where you kind of see people being pinned against each other because of this new political movement. And I think that's really the most dangerous kind of monster we could encounter. I really didn't think it was going to take this political turn as I'm talking, but I did. It's just terrifying I think that could happen in real life. I think we're in other scenarios where it's kind of contained to a specific scenario where like you're dealing with a psychotic killer in, well, basically my other three picks, but this is where your hand is being twisted to act a certain way for survival, and it calls into question human nature. What are you willing to do to survive? Or everyone always thinks that they're not capable of murder, these horrendous crimes, and then you get 12 hours to do whatever the fuck you want and not get in trouble, and a shit show ensues. So that's my number one. I'm not entirely convinced that it's the right choice, but it is my choice.
It's a fine choice. I love those Purge movies after the first one. The first one was fine. It wasn't anything to write home about. But then once they did Anarchy and Election Year and Year One and even the USA series. I know we're talking about the movies, but they did a great job with when they realized that they had a good idea with the first one, but they went the wrong direction with it. And then when they went the right direction, they were like, you know what, we're just going to make this legitimate political commentary to an extent, and we're going to put it out there. And it's not just the story of one family, it's the story of how the monstrosity that is humanity. And then when they ran with that ball, that's when that became an absolutely amazing franchise.
I think that with the first movie, I remember watching it and I got the point of it, but because it was contained in the house, it wasn't as impactful as, say, like Anarchy, because holy fuck, they're like out now. There's no safety net. There's no way to protect themselves. Like, so, and then, they just built off of that from there. And I just think that in terms of terrifying, I think that there's really nothing more terrifying than what people can do to other people, given an avenue, a platform, or an opportunity. So downer, I know, but that's my number one.
Oh no, it's a great pick. I love it.
All right, I haven't seen the Purge movies. I saw one of them, I think, a long time ago. So I'm not. That's why.
Well, skip the first one. Just jump to the second.
Yeah,
one.
just skip the first. Just go straight to Anarchy. They'll explain how it works.
And
real fast.
How you say Anarchy?
Anarchy.
All right, DeBono, what do you got for your number one?
My number one is genuinely, I think, the most scared I've ever been of a human being while watching a movie, even though you don't even really know who it is until the very end, and that is John Doe from the movie Seven. I know we're going to get back around. I know we're going to get back around to what my number two was in Hannibal Lecter. But the reason that I find John Doe to be more terrifying than Hannibal Lecter is John Doe was a guy who he deemed that these people had sinned, and so that's why he murdered them. But they were just normal people for the most part. Like, yeah, the one guy was really fat, right? But whatever. Like, I'm a fat guy who likes sex and money and laying around, like I like doing a lot of these things. It's like, so maybe, like it felt very real. It was, there's it was like I think it's called like a calling killer or something like that. Like somebody who believes that a higher power has spoken to them and that has made this their mission, missionary killer. There we go. Made that their mission in life is to save these people from themselves while simultaneously saving the world from these people. And that's genuinely one of the most terrifying things I've ever come across while learning about killers is people who believe that they're doing the right thing. It's not, they're not receiving necessarily any sort of sexual satisfaction out of it or anything like that. And that's what John Doe was doing. He was out there ridding the world of these people that he had determined were just awful. And, to the point that the movie's 30 years old, or 25 years old. So sorry if I spoil it, but down to the fact that he has himself killed because he believes that because he determined he's committed one of these sins. And so he has himself killed at the end of the movie. It's just absolutely terrifying. Plus the ways that he killed these people were so absolutely horrifying. I don't think I saw this movie right when it came out. So it came out in 95. Let's just say I saw it 2 years later. And so that makes me 14. I'm still traumatized by the concept of making a John put on a dildo with a blade on it and having him sex a prostitute to death. That traumatized me. Well, I'll never fully recover.
Why?
What?
That's a weird word to say, fucking aroused. But all right, go ahead.
Like, I will honestly never fully recover from watching the movie Seven and seeing that way to murder someone.
And you were 14 when
It
you
felt
watched that?
it like a yeah, something like that. And it was just it was terrifying. It felt very real. And it was just incredible. And when I go back and I thought about these and I think about these, I wrote them on my short list, and he just kept climbing because every time I would think about one of those deaths and how traumatizing, the horrible ways that he killed those people, like the Pride woman, you know, he sliced her face up and then glued a phone to one hand and sleeping bottles to the other, and she had to decide if she was going to live her life horribly scarred and call for help, or if she was just going to kill herself. And those things like that, just the sheer amount of planning and horrible thinking that went into these things just blew me away. And I feel like it really laid the groundwork for some of the things that became Saw. And John Doe just was traumatizing and felt far more real than Hannibal Lecter, which is why I ended up swapping them at the last minute and putting John Doe at number 1.
This movie's a masterpiece, dude. I saw it maybe 4 months ago. It still holds up. It's fantastic. I don't think I ever saw it in its entirety when it first came out during its first run, and I don't think I had ever seen it in its entirety. I saw lots of bits and pieces in the last scene, of course, when they go out there and take the ride, and seen that a bunch of times. But when you watch it all together,
I mean, what's in the fucking box?
Great. Yeah, it's so fucking good, man. So I can't fault you for that. The reason why it went to my honorable mentions list, I'm sorry. The reason why I went to my honorable mentions list is because we didn't actually see him do any of those murders, and
that is true.
That was my out. That was my mental excuse, like my mental fucking whipcord, where I could be like, oh, I can't pick him because I didn't see him do any of the murders. So that was, for all we know, he didn't do any of those murders. So we don't fucking know, right? I mean, I believe he did. I'm just saying for the excuse of to have the excuse to not put him on my list. That's the reason he didn't make my list. But it's a fantastic movie. I think one of the great case studies in psychological thrillers and movies. I think try to get into this guy's head. Yeah, he had it in his mind. He was right. He was doing society a favor. So it's something. It says something.
And just one of the really fun like facts movie is it was Kevin Spacey's idea for his name to not be associated with it in any way, shape, or form, so everyone would be shocked when he showed up.
Which, ironically, 20 years later is the reason why I could still watch the movie, because his name's not anywhere associated with it, because he's a fucking dirtbag in real life.
Right.
All right. Let me see here. My number 1 is Dr. Sarah Taylor, played by Rebecca De Mornay in Never Talk to Strangers. I'm kidding. I'm fucking kidding. There should be an all Rebecca De Mornay cat fucking mountain. That should have been hilarious. No, my number.
That was funny, Missy.
Oh man, women be hating, ain't they? My number 1 is Dr. Hannibal Lecter. My favorite of the movies, as we talked about in Shiver, and I'm sure, I don't know if we talked about it ever on Geekmore, but I love Hannibal. Hannibal's a favorite of mine. I put that one over Silence of the Lambs. I know I'm a man on my own mount. I'm on an island. I get it. I understand. But I love that fucking movie. So it's Dr. Hannibal Lecter from Hannibal. You see him do the murders, all these gruesome shits. Everything that was said about John Doe, we actually get to see Hannibal Lecter do these horrific things. And eating of the brain, which was fucking phenomenal. I fucking love that scene.
So brutal.
It's so brutal. The fact that they cut that guy's stomach in fucking Italy, the inspector's stomach in Italy when he was hanging off a girl, just fucking, and then you see all the guts splatter on his intestines splatter on the ground, and it's brutal. It's just fucking brutal, and we see it all happen. And from a man who, Anthony Hopkins, you as a viewer have learned to love because he's fucking Sir Anthony Hopkins. He's amazing. but as Hannibal Lecter, he is charming. He is
Yeah,
funny.
it's terrifying.
He's charming. He's funny, and then he could look into the lens of the camera and give you that fucking those eyes, those piercing blue eyes could just become terrifying when he, it's just fucking it's a masterpiece to me in acting. And he said in Inside the Actor Studio that he based his movement of Hannibal Lecter as a reptile from like a snake. So he'll move his head like suddenly and stuff like that, and he'll do all it. Fucking man, I mean, who thinks of that? Who fucking honestly, who thinks of that shit? But it made the performance that much better, and I thought it was fucking great. So I would just leave it at Dr. Hannibal Lecter in Hannibal, specifically Hannibal, but any other series.
Right. He was my number 2, and I would have put him from Silence, just because I actually found I don't know, maybe it's a thing for me. I found it a little bit creepier that in Silence you didn't see him do as much. It was really just more about the psychological aspect and the way that he played every angle. But man, yeah, no, I love the pick.
Yeah, it's fucking great. I mean, Silence is a phenomenal movie. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from fucking Silence. It's just so great. And let at the end where he's like, I have to have a friend for dinner. Oh, it's so fucking creepy.
Yeah.
You feel it. You fucking feel it. And let's not forget, if it wasn't for Silence of the Lambs, we wouldn't have one of the greatest scenes in The Office. So let us not forget that. It didn't look realistic in the movie. Turns out, yeah, you can do it. It's realistic. So our number ones are Norman Bates, Psycho Killer. Norman Bates. The Founding Fathers from the Purge movies. John Doe from Seven, and Hannibal Lecter. I'm sorry, Dr. Hannibal Lecter from Hannibal. So those are our number ones, and we have a couple of repeats. We have Hannibal as a repeat. We have who else?
Joker.
Joker. Is that the only two?
I'm on the board.
Hannibal Lecter.
So.
Joker. Let me see. Leatherface. Patrick Bateman. Nobody else on Patrick Bateman. Nope. Okay.
No.
So yeah. So we got to come up with other two. But we have Hannibal and Joker right now on the final mountain.
Gonna make an argument for Norman Bates. I mean, he's kind of the original.
Yeah, see, and that's I would, I agree with Dave on that. Norman Bates is terrifying. I mean, it is like the original slasher flick. I would definitely think that he deserves a spot on there, even though he wasn't on my mountain.
I'm not gonna argue that because he made it onto a Wu-Tang song. So yeah, I'm down for that. I'm down for Norman Bates, Psycho Killer. Yeah. So what else? So right now we got Hannibal, Joker, and Norman Bates. Anybody else want to recommend one? Anybody else?
I feel like maybe Leatherface.
I like the Leatherface pick. I really do. Like I wouldn't argue that making the mountain. Plus that would I think that's a quintessential horror film, but that delved a lot deeper into the psychology than a lot of them do. So I would not be opposed to that Leatherface pick.
I wouldn't be opposed to Leatherface. I would say Patrick Bateman from American Psycho, but I mean, I think both of these picks are really good.
Any relation to Norman? No, that's Bateman and Bates. Never mind.
Yep.
Bateman. He changed his name to he was ashamed of the family history, so he changed his name to Bateman.
But yeah, I like the Leatherface pick a lot. Like I was on the fence about it, but Dave's description of everything and how deep the mythos of Leatherface goes has sold me on Leatherface.
Yeah, for some reason, just people kind of stop at that first Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And that second one is still written and directed by Tobe Hooper and is pretty brilliant. It plays up the humor much more than the first one does. he very famously said that people didn't understand that the first one was a black comedy, and I still don't see how it is. But he certainly made the second one a black comedy. It's very funny in parts, and you see a lot of that there.
Yeah. So the final monster we have Hannibal, Joker, Norman Bates, Psycho Killer, and Leatherface. That is the final mountain.
That's a good amount of killers.
I think that's a good amount of killers, man. Of natural born killers. Make sure you guys. We could have had fucking this dude. We could have Woody Harrelson from Natural.
Woody
Born
Harrelson.
Killers on the list. Yeah. Shout out if you guys want to check out other great podcasts. We have a lot of other great podcasts at geekbro.net. If you are a new listener listening in, because I did a series of spots on the Ari Spears podcast called Spears and Steinberg. And I've had a lot of people reach out to me on my Instagram and telling me that they're going to listen now to the podcast. So if you are one of those listeners, thank you very much and welcome. Hope you spread the word. And you can listen to other great podcasts at geekbro.net on the Geekbro Network, geekbro.net. We have Pero Let Me Tell You. We have What's Good, which is Daniel DeBono's podcast. It's on YouTube. You can also go click on the What's Good channel on the Geekbro Network.
What you got? What's
website.
Good's my old one.
I'm sorry. You're right. What you got? I apologize. They're all behind me. Like the
I see
changing
them.
of the chairs. They're all fucking behind me, so I can't. So it's Better Let Me Tell You. What's up, bro? What you got? And fuck. And I'm flatlining on one of them. But it's
childlike at best.
Childlike at best with Mike Valdez. Thank you so much. Again, I apologize. They're all fucking behind me and I can't do this shit. So thank you guys for checking us out. Check out Missy's blog at missythewriter.com. Is that correct, Missy?
Nope. MissyWrites.com. And my Instagram is at MissyTheWriter.
There you go. So it's at Missy the Writer is her Instagram and MissyWrites.com is the website. Check out her blog. And thank you very much. And that's how lists are made. Oh, my comedy is NaryScience.com or whatwashisname.com. That's how lists are made.